Welcome to the Workplace Wellbeing Essential Series. I'm Mari Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Advancing Wellness. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to this expert interview where we explore topics that impact employee well-being. My guest today is Michael Delman. Michael Delman is an award-winning educator and entrepreneur. In 2006, he founded Beyond BookSmart, which is, as its CEO, he has grown into the world's largest executive function coaching company. Prior to that, Michael co-founded and was the principal of McAuliffe Charter School in Framingham, Massachusetts. In 2018, he published his first book, Your Kid's Gonna Be Okay, Building the Executive Function Skills Your Child Needs in the Age of Attention. Michael brings his unique combination of business acumen and an educator's perspective to his visionary work. His passion is helping people discover their strengths, develop their confidence, and become more effective at whatever challenges they face. Michael, welcome. I'm so delighted to have you here today.
Thank you, Mari. Really glad to be here with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, suddenly we're in a world in which people have found themselves working in places they might not have expected before, in particular home offices, as we're dealing with the coronavirus outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So for many people, this means disruption in the ways that they're working and the ways that they're used to working, and not only to their work life, but to their home life as well. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people where you see the kids in the background or the dog running by or, swapping the dining room table with the husband or partner. So in today's discussion, what I'd like to explore is how has this sudden change in this amount of disruption that we're dealing with impacting people's ability to focus on their work and to be productive.
Mm-hmm.
So as an executive function coach, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do in that area?
Sure. The essence of executive function coaching is teaching people how to manage this part of the brain, the part where we slow down and make conscious decisions. Very different from the kind of the part of the brain. If this was a model of your brain, this is the prefrontal cortex. This is the amygdala where we go, oh my gosh, and we're in fight or flight. Part of the problem is that with constant anxiety and the bombardment of the number 19 and everything, that people are worried about, the economy, health, and so forth, that the prefrontal cortex can get disengaged. And so right now, the number one job for all of us is to re-engage the prefrontal cortex, to stay calm. If you remember that old Maslow's hierarchy, of kind of needs, physiological needs on up to social needs, achievement, and so forth. Everybody's dropped a couple levels down to the level of basically hunting down toilet paper. So we want to all remember that underneath it all, we're human beings with ambitions and goals. And so we need to be able to begin with that self-regulation piece. And that's what executive function skills are. They allow you to be able to kind of work your way back up the pyramid to more productive capacities.
Well, you're right. It feels like everybody slipped a little bit on that pyramid. I think that's a really good analogy because we're focused on different things than perhaps we were a few weeks ago. Michael, I'm just curious, how did you come to this work of executive function and the kind of coaching that you're doing?
Two ways. I think just on a professional level, there was an acknowledgement that the students I was working with, and then when I became a leader and managed adults as a school principal, that people were not just focused on content. The things that we thought we were supposed to be focusing on, other things kept getting in the way, like being organized and being able to prioritize and being able to focus. And so if those things aren't intact, everything else is just insignificant. So I really, 15 years ago, I made the shift to focusing full time and building a large staff on how can we help people to become productive regardless of the content, regardless of the details.
But you've done a lot of work with children, but now you're doing work with adults and in the workplace.
Yeah.
So how is it different working with children versus working with adults?
In some ways, not so different. In other ways, it is because, the consequences for adults are not just to ourselves, they're to other people. So when a child's struggling, they, an adult hopefully can manage their own emotions and handle it and be able to soothe and nurture and so forth. But when an adult is having problems, it affects your colleagues. It affects your,
Right.
your direct reports and everybody
Right.
else. So there's that much more at stake. And we have been coaching adults for 5-6 years now, because they've sought it out. It started with, a VP at a big company who said, "I know you're helping my 3 sons, but could you help me?" And we realized that the need was there for adults too, because we are still struggling with some of these issues. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see where we would be. And, at various points in time, all of us might be struggling with some of that. But
Hmm.
people seem to be struggling a lot right now, given everything
Hmm.
that's going on. So I'm just curious from your experience and your perspective, for those of us that are finding it hard to stay focused and stay productive and
Hmm.
stay away from the media or whatever it might be,
Hmm.
what are some of the suggestions that you might make on how we can stay productive and stay focused?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what we've been coaching and the families we work with and the clients we work with. The first thing actually is very much aligned with what you were just saying, Mari, which is when you get out of bed in the morning, the very first thing you need to do is to establish an intention for the day. What is that one big thing that you really want to get done? And the tendency is to kind of reach for the phone, maybe turn off your alarm, and then check the news or social media posts
Mm.
or text messages. And all of the above basically turn us into a pinball that's getting knocked about hither and thither by whatever somebody else is finding important. Before we are responsive or reactive, worse still, we want to make sure that we're proactive and that we decide, okay, the thing I really want to focus on today is, for example, reaching out to the Small Business Administration,
Mm.
making sure, that I understand these forms, or checking in on my employees and
Mm.
seeing how many hours are they still able to work given their new situation. But
Mhm.
establish that intention, make sure that's your focus, and then schedule a time to do it. Even then, if after that you find yourself getting sucked down the rabbit hole a little bit, and that probably will happen, at least
Mhm.
you've got some dedicated time on something that you know is really, really valuable. And so your day will not have been totally a waste, at which point
Mm.
you look back and say, "What?
What
Oh
was
my
I?
gosh." And,
Yeah.
and you end up feeling badly about it too.
Do you encourage people to actually write that intention down?
Not only write it down, but actually say it out loud.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
see, say, do principle in education.
Mm.
So very little of what we read actually stays with us. A little more of kind of what we hear, and then when we see it, when we say it, and when we actually write it down, it makes a huge difference. I actually have an app called One Big Thing. You can get it;
Mm.
it's free. And at the top of the screen is a big space for the one big thing and then 3 small things. Below that are the things I might do, which is also nice because although you probably won't do them, at least you don't have to have them sitting around in your head taking
Mm.
up that mental space. So that's one of the first things I would recommend people do to begin the day.
Great. Well,
Then there's then
setting
there's
an intention, setting intention so important because then it gives us
right,
some direction.
right.
What other suggestions, Michael?
Well, as the day goes on, it's working in kind of chunks of time that are actually doable for you. Everybody's got their own rhythm to this, but really, really importantly, if you're someone that works effectively for 45 minutes, work for 45 minutes, and then take a break, a rejuvenating break. But before you take that break, write down what the next thing is that you'll do when you come back. This is kind of like that setting an intention, but it's setting your next steps for when you return. The reason you do that is if you don't, you not only have to muster up the energy to come back and the willpower, which is a little harder these days, but you also have to overcome the kind of that mental stress of deciding what you'll do. By writing it down before you break,
Hmm.
you don't have to do that. You've already eliminated that part of the task. So in a sense, you've already started before you've started. So that's kind of the second thing. The third thing is definitely, those breaks, try to structure them in a way that they are actually productive. So
Mm.
so there's such a Harvard Business Review had this article on unfocusing. I believe you shared with me that I found so useful. That whole principle, whether it was a little nap or a positive constructive daydreaming or whatever it is, finding a way to step away, but that refreshes you. So getting out for a walk or something productive like that. There's a way to go to YouTube and to actually block, the next YouTube video from popping up. Those kinds of things are really useful because you might intend to only break for 15 minutes. You might even set an alarm for 15 minutes. But then, the next video comes up and you think, well, this one's actually really cool and it might be important. We do best as a species generally by keeping temptations actually away from us as opposed to resisting them. Because even if we resist them, it's still a drain on us. So it's to actually put those temptations out of sight, and it really is out of sight, out of mind. Those are a couple kind of next steps. And then, we could talk more if you want to hear more about focus, or if you have other questions, we could move to those.
Yeah, let's just go back to your second point. So I sometimes find that I tend to be really productive when I, for lack of better, what I call time blocking. When I literally set an alarm and I say for the next 45 minutes, which, happens to be a good timeline for me, and I set an alarm for it. So I've dedicated that time to just that.
So I do that, and I'm a CEO. This is an advantage that I have. I encourage all of my employees to think as they are leaders and they control their schedules. And so to put in blocks of time literally on their Google calendars, because we can see each other's calendars, and even if they just say busy, shift the mode from everyone sees what you're doing to just busy. Put aside that large block, a 45-minute or an hour, put in a little longer so people will do not disturb. The other part with that, Mari, is it's not just the time, it's actually putting aside that time for the hardest things at the times when you're most productive. So, we all have our some people are night owls, some people are early mourners, and people can just get up and go. For me, I have my high caffeine tea. I'm a tea drinker, and I have that. I do my push-ups and sit-ups. I do a little yoga. I take a shower, and I try to stay in professional mode. Even though I'm working from home almost always, and then I say my best time is probably 9 to noon, maybe 8 to noon. That's when I'm best. So I'm going to do the worst first, do the hardest things first. The other reason for that is not just because you'll get it done, but because of the pat in the back that you get from that encourages you to move forward for other things. So you might give yourself a reward after that, but you'll feel more competent, and feeling competent is key to being competent. But it doesn't happen without actually doing something. So first we do something useful, and then we say, I can reflect on what just happened. I'm pretty capable. Even in these circumstances, I'm getting good things done. You know what? I can now tackle the email pile that was sitting there, and I'll push right through it.
Oh, that's great. Those are really good suggestions. I appreciate those. Let's just talk a minute about email, because I know personally it just feels like, it's just this bottomless thing that never goes away. Do you have some suggestions? Like, you talked about the time blocking. So would you close your email? Do you set certain times of the day just to work on email? How do you feel that, because I think that's one of the rabbit holes that we can just get so caught up in and get nothing else done except just doing email.
Yeah. So in terms of managing email, again, email is us being a pinball and just whatever way the world bounces us. And that's just not a good way to, to really stick to things that matter. So, and yet we do need to check it, because sometimes there are actually important things buried in the pile. First off, I will set a do not disturb sometimes on my email. I'll put an out of office, and I'll say, if it's important, please text me. You know who knows how to text me? pretty much everybody who really I need to speak to. So, it's not disingenuous. It's not rude. It's simply a matter of getting the things done that matter. So you can set your out of office and have people reach you that way. Another couple of quick things, you can use an app called Forest on your phone that does not let you pick up your phone. If you do, you'll actually kill the tree that was growing. You can use apps on your laptop like Self-Control or Stay Focused to blacklist sites you don't want to go near. When you actually get to the email though, and I would not make it the first thing you do in the day. I'd have scheduled times. I'll check at 10:30. I'll check again at 2. I'll check again at 5. And I'll give it an hour each of those times. When you do, it's really important to speed matters. So slowing down is not a good idea. It's first good to get a lay of the land. It would be like skimming a textbook in college, for example. Skim it all over. See which ones jump out. Ding, 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 ding. Get rid of the 50 that are just complete garbage. Someday, if you have time, unsubscribe from a whole lot.
Right.
And then this one can be addressed in 30 seconds or so. Boom, 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 boom. And then really, what are the ones that really require your attention? Focus on those and put some heart and soul into those. But again, it's prevent email from even being on your mind through the apps that block it. Then it is scheduling the right times when you will do it. And then it is prioritizing within the email by a scan first approach.
That's great. Oh, those are great techniques. Definitely going to employ some of those. I'm just curious, are there any other practices, Michael, that you would suggest that can help individuals build executive function skills?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the particular skill. So, there are 8 to 12 pretty important ones. Here's a really easy one anyone can do. If you're finding that your colleague, your kid, your partner, your spouse is driving you a little nuts and you're about to say something you don't want to say, obviously walk away, but you can do this 5-finger breathing. Just trace your fingers, trace one hand, breathe in and breathe out, and breathe in and breathe out. And suddenly you become a human being again, instead of a reactive, electric wire. That's for self-regulation. In terms of focus, we kind of went over a bunch of those and ways to stop those things. For planning and prioritizing, I would again emphasize the idea of having that one big thing and having dedicated time. And then there's organization and space management. And one of the things that we've done in our family, my wife wrote out a quarantine doctrine, and she put down some of the things that helped. But having a family conversation every night, the night before, about the use of space, and really establishing what the family culture is. So what's first? By way of example, in our family, first priority is actually sleep. So if somebody's sleeping, whatever else you have going on, you need to be quiet enough that you're not bothering them. That's first. Second is washing the dishes and doing work around. If you're doing that, you get to do your own music or whatever it is. And then third, professional work. Obviously, that's going to be critically important. But other people need to give space for that if that's what's going on. So for example, if I want to work at the kitchen table and no one else is, for example, washing the dishes or doing something big, I don't have to move. If they want to listen to something, watch Netflix, they have to move. So I get to control the space if it's work. If my wife's doing work as a business call, I move. So, we have those priorities really articulated. I think that really helps. And again, that check-in the night before you wake up and go, what's everybody got going on today? No, we all know what the schedule is for the next day.
That's great.
I hope that's a little bit helpful.
Yeah, those communication techniques I think are so important because, we're in uncharted territories here.
We are
literally being around our family members for periods of time that we have not
done in a long time.
Yes.
Right.
For better or worse, we would never imagined this.
Yeah,
and so it really does take a lot of communication and sometimes negotiation, as you say.
It does. Yeah.
That's great. All right. Those are great skills. Well, thank you for sharing some of those and some of the ways that we can practice these and make everyone happier and more compatible in the time that we're spending together. Michael, if our audience wants to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, where can they find you?
Sure. 2 ways. They can go to my website, So my company is Beyond BookSmart, just beyondbooksmart.com. If they want to reach out to me directly, feel free. I'll just say my email. It's M as in Michael, Delman, Delman, at beyondbooksmart.com. And happy to help them if I can.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Real pleasure, Mari.
And I'm going to put some of those suggestions to work as I try to stay focused in this
Me too.
this challenging time. Great. Thanks, Michael.
Pleasure.